Now, please welcome to the stage Maria Shriver, Brian Grazer, and John Paul DeJoria.
Okay. I am so excited to be up here with these two slackers. I mean, wow. No, I want to thank Ford, and I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. Bill Turner, thank you so much for hosting us in this beautiful space. And surrounded by the work of a 91-year-old who told me every morning he gets up and paints and then he starts lying. And I said, that's how we all want to grow old, right? Still painting, still lying, still having fun, still going out. So there you go. But I want to begin by thanking these two gentlemen. I'm so excited to be here. They're friends of mine. I'm in awe of them. Really? I mean, if you look at their films, I mean, their lives are extraordinary. But what to me is so exciting and why I believe that they're architects of change is they are two individuals who are very self-aware, they're self-made, they're reflective, and they're men. That's really interesting. But they're also really devoted to making the world a better place. So they're not just about making money and making successful films, but they both really have as part of their mission and their vision is to give back, share their message, share their vision, and I want to thank them for being here tonight to talk about being architects of change and what each of us can take away and how we can become the people we want to be. So I want to begin with Brian. Because we were talking to, I love this book that he's going to be signing in a little bit. It's called A Curious Mind. And I love the title because I also have a really curious mind.
I'm sure you do.
But it's so, it's all about the travel of curiosity, the journey of curiosity, how important it is in your life. And you say in here that really you are the success that we just saw up there, not because so much of being a film producer, but being a really curious person, and that enabled you to do all of that. So explain how curiosity has allowed you to have the life you have.
Very long answer. Well, first of all, let me go like this. As I also produce movies and television, as you've seen, I wrote a book. But at the same time, I have curiosity conversations, and I do this vigilantly, and in a very sort of like almost paramilitary kind of way. Every single 2 weeks, without fail, for 35 years, I will have a meeting with somebody that's an expert or committed to something. It could be science, medicine, politics, religion, all art forms, all humanities. 3 CIA directors, endless amounts of people. And incidentally, a digression to this right away is that I know how this began. It began 6 months ago when I wanted to interview you and have a curiosity conversation with you. Somehow it morphed into this. where you're the perpetrator, I'm the victim. So,
yeah, he's like, I want to talk to you. I said, no, I want to talk to you. I'll talk to you first, and then you can talk to me.
It shows who's more clever. So in any event, I try to do this timeline very quickly, but as a kid, I grew up very acutely dyslexic, and where people you weren't even the category of dyslexia wasn't even available. It wasn't something that we knew about, but I didn't get very good grades. In fact, all D's, all F's, all the time. And I had this grandmother, this tiny little grandmother, Sonia. Sonia was well under 5 feet. But she would tell me that my superpower was curiosity. And because at 5 years old, it's not even a profound question. I would ask a lot of questions, but there was a moment in her convertible car, it was stopped at a red light, and there was a bee on the car. And I said, what goes faster, a car or a bee? And so she gave me an answer that had like physics attached to it and everything. It was like a serious thing. But she did say why. I said, well, because we're right now at a stopped signal, and I want to know, because there's a bee on the car, what is going to be activated first? Are we going to accelerate and be gone, or what will happen with the bee, and am I going to get stung? So it
Who's
sort
had
of
a kid like that?
so it sort of started that way, and quickly, she was again telling me all the time I was going to be special, and I was going to go all the way, and I was going to do something with myself that was productive and meaningful. And she wouldn't say those words, but the equivalent of those words. And she's looking at my report cards that I'm looking at, which are all Fs, and I'm thinking there's literally no empirical evidence that's going to occur. But she just she was very persistent, and really what we all know is that you just need one person in your life that consistently can validate you, and hopefully while they're validating you, they're on topic, on subject of the thing that, that can be useful. So smash cut, Grandma Sonia, all things are good. I get through elementary school, I get through junior high school, I start to graduate to the point where I'm getting kind of C's and some B's. I ended up at USC somehow. And I graduated from USC, and then when I graduated, I was always asking questions all the time. I guess I didn't think of it like this, but to be sort of self-actualized. And I said, what did I learn after I graduated? And I thought, I concluded nothing. And so I thought, I better do something. So there was one professor. I'll go quickly, honey. So one professor. Okay. So there's one professor.
Did she just tell you to wrap it up?
Yeah, she gave me the look. Very intrigued with. I said, I found this very cunning way to meet with him. He said, you've already graduated. Why do you want to meet with me? I said, because I'm curious, blah, blah, blah. He met with me. Then all of a sudden, I used this curiosity. He met with me. That was good. I used the curiosity to build stories. I built the story of Night Shift, my first movie, and my second movie, Splash, which I wrote and produced. So then I started to think, I'm going to make this a discipline of meeting a new person, as I said, every 2 weeks. And it's not going to be arbitrary or random. It's going to be very systematized. And
you did that.
And I did it. I did it for a lot of reasons, because the vicissitudes of our business is like 1 minute you're up, the minute you're down. 1 minute you're up, you're a minute down. And I thought, I don't want to live on those metrics, because I'm an emotional wreck before anything happens. So in any event, I think I need some other thing to do where there's no winning and losing. There's no metrics defining it.
So what is interesting in this book, Brian basically goes through his whole curious journey, and there are stories of all of the people he met. But at the back of the book, it talks about that every one of us have the ability to be curious. And he lays out how to have a curiosity conversation which you believe enlarges our lives. And why did you want to pass that on? Why do you want people to go and have curiosity conversations themselves? What's your hope?
Well, there's so many things that you benefit from this system of thought. First of all, I do think everybody has curiosity, but it's like a muscle. You have to exercise it. You have to work on it. You have to improve it. It has to be incubated. But we can all do it. It's 100% democratized. Anyone can do this. But in order to have an interesting, and in my case, a bigger life, because I grew up like JP, a tiny little life, a little world, and a little cul-de-sac. And I thought, how do I build out a bigger life? And I was constantly reflecting on that, et cetera, et cetera. The way to build a bigger life is to ask questions to enlarge in your world. And I just knew that was the thing to do, but you asked a different question.
Well, no, but the question I asked you is why you wanted to lay out, to have these curiosity conversations.
I know why. I got it, because I got lost in a story.
That's okay, I'm right here.
I was going to tell a story, but I need JP to talk to, but hold on. So basically...
Well, because you just actually, and I want you to tell the story why you want them, because you just had a curiosity conversation with JP.
A month ago. But basically, I think which thing you want to know?
I want you to tell people why they should engage in it.
In order to have an interesting life, you have to have stories going on in your life. As you see, when people when they retire, they often cease to have a story that propels them from minute to minute, from hour to hour, to day. So clearly, there's a lot of evidence that points to the fact that we should all have multiple stories in our life that sort of drive our life forward, that keep it interesting and to enlarge, and it's mandatory. So I did it for that. I did it for the internal life to an external life, and then, in my case, to build stories like movies and television stories. That's why I did it.
And it's a very clear trajectory, which is really incredible.
Took a long time.
Yeah. JP, Brian just called you about a month ago to have a curiosity conversation with you. What did you make of him?
Well, for starters, he's an exceptionally successful man and brilliant. And with Brian, just talking to him, even throughout the evening we had our dinner and his lovely wife, it was all about one story after another. He would tell a story or two, I would tell one, and it just went throughout the entire evening, and it was quite obvious that there was creativity, but a story along with it. There was substance to it, not just talk.
So you,
Incredible.
as Brian was saying, both of you grew up, and you described it as with a little life. And you grew up homeless, poor, and everything I've read about you, and we've had dinner, you hustled. I mean, you worked really, really hard, and you looked at everything as what can I sell, right? You still do that.
I sure do. It was a different era. When I was 7 years old and in East LA at the foster home, saw my mom on the weekends there because she was sick, single family, single mom. Dad deserted us at 2 years old. And we would go to the Variety Boys Club in East LA. And the curiosity was there, but I think curiosity and imagination go hand in hand. I know my brother and I were there at the Variety Boys Club, and they were building these beautiful flower pots. And my brother and I had a conversation once, and he was 18 months older than me. We said, God, I wonder if we get one of those flower pots and we can get 25 cents worth of wood on credit, and maybe somebody will give us 40 cents, 50 cents for it, and we make a little bit of money. So we were saying, I wonder if this could work. So we went there, built a flower box, went out there knocking door to door. Well, as we knocked door to door, we know we're not interested, boys, thank you very much. But we were curious. We said, well, let's not give up. What if we go all the way down the street and back up the other side? So we kept on going. We finally ran across a waitress in a little coffee shop, and she bought it for 50 cents. We went back, paid our 25 cents, took the other 25 cents, bought more wood, sold the other one for 50 cents. We said, wow, this is really cool. But where I grew up, it was an area where you'd like to work. At 9 years old, I sold Christmas cards door to door. Gave all the money to my mom, wasn't that much in those days, because we felt worthwhile if we worked. From 11 years old on out, I had a paper out. At that time, it was the Los Angeles Examiner. It was the #1 morning newspaper. They kind of went away. But it was all about the imagination. Can you do this? Can you make some changes on your own? And I've worked ever since. But I want to point something out here. When you look at imagination, you look at creativity, and you look at interesting things along the way. What happens is this: a lot of people that see that can imagine, they become very, very creative, get stopped along the way because of rejection. Yeah. So I tell everybody this: part of keeping it going and part of letting that imagination flow, or that creativity flow, is know in advance you're going to get rejection. And because you know in advance, when it hits you, it's not going to totally turn you off. The best example I could give you is selling encyclopedias door to door. No appointments. You're knocking door to door. People don't even know why you're there. The average encyclopedia salesman lasts 3 days. I lasted 3.5 years, but I was just as enthusiastic. On door number 51 has 50 that were shut in front of me. So when we're talking about this creativity and these things that come your way and think out of the box, we got to let people know that think out of the box and go for some of your thoughts. But if you're prepared for rejection, it's not going to stop you along the way.
Something that when you and I had dinner that stayed with me is you said that many people think about selling a product. You always think about the repeat. You don't think about selling the product. You think about the repeat customer constantly.
That's right. It's one of the real secrets to business in the world. If you have a product, don't buy a product, buy a product or service that you want to sell. Don't sell your product. Have your product or your service so good that you want to be in the repeat order business. They'll either want to order it again and again or tell somebody about it if it's a one-type item, so that the quality is so good that when you tell somebody about it, you have the pride of quality, and you don't have to BS anybody. It's very, very real. And you know that by getting in their hands, even if you have no money, get enough hands, you're going to have a repeat customer because of that quality.
JP was saying, Brian, which I think is so interesting, we live in a society that wants to put everybody in a box, right? As you said in the book, I'm a movie producer, but really, I'm a storyteller. I'm more than what you think. You are selling encyclopedias, Christmas cards, hair shampoo, Patron. You just keep changing how we see you. How difficult is that, you think, to push up against the way society wants to label you and push out and say, no, I'm more. I want to learn more. I want to grow more. I want to be more than you think.
Is it how difficult? Well, I look at it like, pretty much exactly the way JP does. Like, I just assume people are going to say no. I mean, it's just like, my first movie was about a mermaid. I mean, it's the stupidest idea. I mean, I had hundreds of people over the course of 6 years go, well, first of all, they not only said no, they had to tell me why it was such a terrible idea. So they'd say no, and I'd say, okay, and then they'd feel, they had to degrade me along the way, you know, like just humiliate me. So
And how did that not beat you down?
Because, first of all, it's just a temporary point of view. I think no is just a temporary point of view. That I'll change, I'll go around. It has no value. It doesn't have much value to me, no. I mean, I don't care. You know? I mean, it's just so temporary. I mean, I was described once as, if you say no to Brian, he won't go in the door, he'll go in the window. If he can't go in the window, he'll go in the chimney. If he can go in the chimney, he's going to dig a hole underground. If he can't do that, he's over the barbed wire fence. It's just like, it's temporary. People are mostly uncertain. So they will say no because they're uncertain. And particularly in the business of Hollywood, because there's so much uncertainty and it's completely subjective. So if you can case build, and I usually case build through a thematic, not through a story. So Splash, the mermaid, I kept saying, it's not a mermaid, it's a love story, it's about love, it's about a person that is really pretty good at a lot of different things. He's pretty cool, he owns his own little produce thing, you know, but he's got one disability. He's been emotionally injured, so he cannot have love. Everything else is cool. He can't do this thing. So he has to get through this emotional disability, which is a very valid and universal conflict. So I find these sort of universal conflicts, they are embedded in a theme that I care about. As you know, I have a son. My oldest son is named Riley Grazer. Riley Grazer has Asperger's. And I saw him picked on many times or ignored, and ultimately I could see he was feeling very stigmatized. And one day I dropped him off at school. I came back and looked through the chain link fence, and I saw him with some uncertainty, laid his tray down at the table with all the other kids, and some kid said, "Oh, you left something up there," just so they could hide his lunch. And I just thought it was just like, kills me even to this day. And it lived inside of me my whole life, and until I started to collect other experiences like that in my travels, just by being aware of what's going on in my environment. And I thought, I want to try to make a movie, if I could, that could help destigmatize mental disability. But I had no story, and that became A Beautiful Mind. Right. And A Beautiful Mind was only to service that thematic. And so a lot of my better movies and better television shows are in service of a thematic that matters to me personally, and it's usually, it does ultimately connect to creating a better world, ultimately just through humanity, through people understanding other people. The movie 8 Mile, that's about a rapper, isn't even about a rapper. Being a rapper is the external element, it's the story. The internal element of the story is completely universal, but it's slightly exaggerated because his story was exaggerated. He was so emotionally injured, he couldn't even look at an audience. He walked up, he couldn't look like that. By the end of the movie, he not only looks at the audience,
OMG, hands it to Eloise, turn it off.
but he not only looks at the audience, he is able to say, yeah, I am white trash. He outs himself. He liberates himself by talking about all his disabilities. I'm white trash. Yeah, you did have sex with my mom. Yeah, my mother's a whore. You had sex with my girl. It was like that's what was liberating, was empowering, was to be able to do that. It's a point of self-actualization, and that's not like a heady thing. It's just a thing that happens when to think. Okay.
No, but
that
what
you
I
build
think,
into.
what I think is underneath of all of that, what you were just talking about, is you had to pay attention to moments in people's lives and lodge them in your brain along the way, watching your son, watching people who couldn't have love, and you're clocking them back, looking for the story, so you're paying attention throughout your life.
Yeah, which is something that's why I like this thing so much, because it's not a special thing. Anybody and everybody can do it. We all have had unique triumphs and unique tragedies. The movie that I produced called Friday Night Lights, which became like an Emmy Award-winning series, was only because in high school I was cut in high school football in front of 300 other kids. And there was a guy, Coach Ogawa, had everybody who'd done Hell Week sitting in a room. Okay, everybody say your name and your status. Bam, bam, bam. Brian Grazer, status. I'm Brian Grazer, tailback. He says, incorrect, cut. And I remember when he was over here, I was a human being, and when I was here, I wasn't a human being. And I thought, it is those fragile seconds in people's lives that seem to be sometimes imperceptible, drive their entire existence. And that's what this was about.
Do you have a moment, JP, like that where Brian's talking about looking at his son through a chain link, such a beautiful actual visual that you described, or how that made you feel when you were cut? Do you have a moment like that that propelled you forward in your life?
I bet JP's whole life.
A few of Brian. By the way, may I comment on something Brian said, which is brilliant? People should know this. He said about a splash. They said it was stupid, but there should be a new phrase: stupid good. That was a great stupid good. I'd like to have a good just for one little sentence on the question you asked Brian about why do you get involved in so many things, and how do you get involved in so many things? Yeah. Why Patron? Why Paul Mitchell? Rock Mobile? John Paul Pett? I go on and on. Why all these things? When I started John Paul Mitchell Systems, we had no money, so therefore we couldn't hire anybody. After 6 months, had enough to hire Shirley Wong as our assistant. She had 10 jobs to do. That's what she had to do. She was
company.
In our company. It was only our only employee. So she was the bookkeeper, the receptionist. She went on and on and on for what she did, because that's what we needed her to do. And then we realized, beyond any question of doubt, that every human being has the ability to do more than one thing. Every human being has the ability to do a lot of things in a very short period of time. As we built John Paul Mitchell Systems, and Patron, same way, we kept the same philosophy: fewer moving parts. An example, John Paul Mitchell Systems is in almost 100 countries in the world. We're the biggest at what we do. Our full-time staff is only 300 people worldwide. Our turnover in 37 years, because we treat people really, really good, is less than 100 people. So in other words, people can do a lot of good things if you take really good care of them. They love what they do, who they do it for. One of the moments I can remember was kind of funny is Michelle Phillips, as in the actress, the Mamas and Papas. We were buddies. We went to high school together. In the 11th grade, Mr. Wax, our business teacher, caught Michelle and I passing notes. I would pass a little note to her, right, and she'd read it, and he busted us, picked up the note, and said, it's something stupid. You know, like, I'll see you at Winchell's after school. Darlene and Ronnie are going to study. Something really dumb. Anyways, he picks up and reads it to the entire class. And he says, see these two here, Johnny DeJoria and Michelle Gilliam was her name at the time? They will never succeed at anything. Look, they're in a business class. You don't hang out with these guys, right? Well, I go in the Navy. I come back and they say, boy, your buddy Michelle really made it. Yeah, what's she doing now? You don't know? She's Michelle Phillips now, the Mamas and Papas. Long story short, we found Mr. Wax on my 50th birthday. So humans have the ability to do a lot. So we didn't pay any attention till we moved on. We moved on.
But one of the things, Brian was just talking about, ultimately everything he's doing, whether it's this book and his films, is really to make people's lives and the world better. And you believe in that so deeply. You talk a lot about, one of the responsibilities of success is to give back. And that's something that your mother taught you as a little boy.
Boy, she sure does. Let me share that story with everybody.
Yeah.
We had nothing. We lived in Echo Park, to the trolley car to downtown LA. We go there Christmas time. We used to have trolley cars in my day. You weren't born then. Anyways, we went down there and it was Christmas time. You know, puppets, little trains going around in circles, amazing time. And my brother and I thought we were the coolest kids in the world. I'm 6 years old at the time. And my mother gave my brother and I a dime and said, boys, each of you hold half this dime, go over there and give it to the guy ringing the bell in his red bucket. We did. We went back to Mom and said, Mom, why do we give him a dime? That's some soda pops, a few candy bars. She said, boys, that's the Salvation Army. They give to people that have no homes and no food. We could only afford a dime this year, but remember this in your life. There's always someone that needs it more than you, and we could afford a dime. I wish we could afford more. But always do something in your life to make someone else's life better. You'll feel really good about it. If you don't have that dime, maybe you spend a little bit of time.
Which is such a, I thought,
She was right.
incredible. You have this film coming out called Good Fortune.
Good Fortune, right.
And it comes out at the end of the month,
Yep.
correct?
That is correct. It'll be debuted in New York and Los Angeles with premieres. It'll be in theaters in about 12 markets of the United States.
And which is super exciting. It's very inspirational. It really is kind of your belief in the American dream. Being you are an epitome of both of you, examples of that. And I asked you before we came out, do you still believe?
Yes, you did. And
I want you to talk a little, both of you perhaps, because we live in a time right now where people are like confused what's going on politically. They don't think or we hear the American dream is out of reach. People are struggling, losing, health care. You can't make it
you
in this
are
country.
so right. The American dream, beyond any question of doubt, still works. And they say, JP, can you do today with Paul Mitchell Patron what you did 37 years ago with Paul Mitchell with $700 living in your car? I said you could do it easier today and to share with your entire audience.
Do it easier, you said?
Easier today, much easier. Let me give you an example, okay? In 1980, when we started John Paul Mitchell Systems, inflation in the United States in 1881 was 12.5%. Unemployment, 10.5%. Interest rates, if you could get a loan, were 17% prime rate. And we waited in line to buy gasoline. And if I wanted a little business card, I had to go to a typesetter, pay $3.50 to typeset it, make me a copy, and then I paid 4 cents a copy to make my envelopes or my stationery. Today you have computers. We went door to door. My office, when I first started, was a $49 answering machine. Those answering machines today are $10, and you have computers and cellular phones with answering machines on it. And we went knocking door to door, no advertising budgets, no nothing. But we had a product that was so good, if we put it in a hairdresser's hands, they would say, this is great, we want to use it again. Going back to we know we have the quality, and we would be in the reorder business. Today, much, much easier. You have access to so many things. You have the internet. You have ways to communicate with people that we never had in our day. I think it's much easier, but you got to believe in it. If you don't believe, you can't do it. We believed it. I mean, if we went to college, we went broke every single day for 2 years. It took us 2 years to pay our bills on time, not pay them off on time. But we believed that what we have was so good, we're going to stick it out no matter what. So people have to have belief. So I'm giving examples just, realistically why things are better today than yesterday. But the one thing that might be missing is we didn't know any better. We believed we could do it no matter what anybody said, and we did it.
So in the book, Brian, you talk about a meeting, a curiosity conversation you had with Lou Wasserman. And Lou Wasserman was, for people who might not know it, like at the time when you were starting out, the king of Hollywood. Nobody got to meet him. You write in the book about how you made your way up there and how he really berated you, how he said to you, you're never going to amount to anything. You're like a schmuck. You're this, you're that, you're nothing. And then he, which I thought was genius, he went into his office and he took out a legal pad and he handed it to you with a pencil and said, the only thing that matters is an idea. Your idea, you have to believe in your idea, now go write an idea. And that's really how you started.
Yeah, yes.
I thought that was so great.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. But that is, So I was again on this sort of curiosity journey, but the journey then was every single day I had to meet a new person, only in the entertainment business. I didn't have the luxury of like reaching out because I had no money, and I had no money. I had no money, and I was a law clerk at Warner Brothers and was pretending I was something much more than I was, so that I'll just say it. I had a $5 an hour job at Warner Brothers, and I would call people and say, hi, my name is Brian Grazer. I work at Warner Brothers Business Affairs. I kind of pushed it up a bit. I want to meet your boss for the following reasons. I always start at the bottom. I mean, that's where I was supposed to start with these people, but that's where I always start. And I still do that. I still self-dial as much as I can, even though I have 3 assistants. I like to self-dial. I like to make it personal to the assistants or the assistant of the assistant. How you doing, man? Because that's how you're going to create urgency for people. Urgency or access. In my case, I had 0 access. Now I just create the urgency that way. But I don't say it's urgent. I just personalize it, which you probably get this. You don't understand this entirely.
But he told you about an idea. You had to believe in it.
So basically what Lou Wasserman said is, I was doing the curiosity meetings. Everybody met with me. I could convince anybody. But it took a long time, like about a year, to meet with Lou Wasserman. He kept putting me off. His assistants did, blah, blah, blah. So they eventually said, all right, come on up. So I go up, I get onto the Universal lot, I get to the 15th floor, I walk out, he looks at me. He could tell that I was full of shit just from looking. Everyone else would hear my story, my little banter, my thing, and it was always well-researched, but he just goes like a version, which he said, but he goes, hold it. Like he didn't want me to come any closer to him. And he said a little bit of what you said, then he goes, just a minute. He didn't want to even hear me talk because he knew that I had nothing to add, really. He knew that it was going to be makeup stuff, you know? That was just me gaming him. So he goes into his office, comes back with a legal tab like this and it was called a 2H pencil, which is a thick pencil. And he says, hold this. He says, you put the pencil to the paper and it's worth more than it was a separate parts. Get out of here. Okay. So now I'm in the elevator thinking, wow, that was kind of humiliating. That was hardcore. But then I thought, well, actually what he was saying is just the truth. I don't really have anything. He knows I have this little $5 an hour job or some version of that. The whole thing's a scam. So in order to actually have something of value, because you better start writing. So manufacture ideas, write these ideas, and at that time, I wasn't in any guild, so I just did self-registered mail to myself and unopened so that it could prove if someone was going to rip me off for one of my ideas. But I was always manufacturing, so I did what he told me. And at 25, I became a producer. I produced some movies for TV. I produced a 20-hour miniseries on the 10 Commandments, where each commandment was utilized as an underlying theme in a contemporary moral dilemma. And I was like doing stuff. Then I went this high, and then I crashed because I got this bigger job at Paramount. And then I was back down to they were kicking me off the lot. And so all of a sudden they're kicking me off the lot, and I thought, what do I do? Why? Because I was exploiting their corporate assets. In any event, I started writing Splash, which was something I'd been doing when I was the hot producer. Because as the hot producer at 25, I saw this girl in my very first movie. Her name was Margie Bailey. Margie Bailey was the hottest girl at USC. An Aryan goddess, like 5'10", amazing. On my very first movie, now 2.5 years out of college, there's Margie Bailey weirdly on my set. So who never would talk to me, wouldn't even think to talk to me. So I waved to her like, Margie. She goes like this. Shh. She shushes me like I was the scumbag I was at USC. So now I see the stars of our movie saying to her, because she was like an extra, I guess, that they're going, Rosanna Arquette, Suzanne Summers, they're whispering. Clearly they're saying, he's the producer. she runs around. She goes, "Oh my God, Brian, I didn't realize you're the producer." All of a sudden, she remembers my name, everything. And she goes, "What are you doing tonight?" It's like, and I think, that bubble, the thing that happened to, I guess it was like Belushi in Animal House, Devil Angel, I thought I could have some integrity and go, "I'm busy," or let's go out. I, of course, took the latter. I went out with Margie, and I realized that all the Hollywood girls were gonna like me, because Margie did. So then, pretty quickly, I got really.
Get to this story?
So pretty quickly, I got tired. Pretty
Margie.
quickly, I got tired of all that, the whole thing, and I thought, well, is it possible to actually find a really great girl, like actually the one I'm married to right now, Veronica?
Veronica, yes.
By the way, it took a very long time, but
Yes.
it did happen. But I thought, is that possible? And I postulated that question. I thought, no, I don't think it's possible. So then I thought, well, why isn't it possible? What would it look like? What would I be like? What is the definition of that girl? And I started writing that thing, and then I started transported it to a more populated city, New York, and blah, blah, blah. Then I superimposed this mythological symbol on top of it to kind of supercharge it, make her more inaccessible, and that became Splash. That was all because Lou Wasserman says, "Get out of my office, put the pencil on the paper."
Okay, there you go. And it's also because, so, very funny. JP, I want to ask you, we were talking about your giving back, and Brian was saying here about all of this is about storytelling and asking people to tap into their own curiosity and make the world better. Do you think that your work moves humanity forward? Is that a guiding principle for you? Is it something you think about day to day or week to week?
Very good question there. Curiosity leads to creativity. Once you get creative about something you're curious about, you can take action. But you go back to curiosity. We start a business with no money. Well, is it possible to have an office? You get curious about it. Then you figure a way, well, maybe an answering machine will do it. It's the same with philanthropy, okay? When you look at what you can do to change the world, and I'll give you just one example of the Sea Shepherd. Many, many years ago, I heard about Paul Watson. In fact, my friend Steve Wynn turned me on to him. Great guy. I thought, boy, I'd be kind of curious. Can a human being change something for thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of animals or other people's lives? So I thought, let's give it a try. So I took my daughter at the time, Alexis. We flew onto the Sea Shepherd in the Bay of St. Lawrence, and we lived on that boat for 1 week. We broadcasted off the boat. We were protecting baby harp seals from being clubbed to death by the clubbers. For 1 week, we broadcasted off of that ship. It had a little bit of notoriety at the time with Paul Mitchell. In that 1 week, not one baby harp seal was clubbed to death. Paul Watson estimates we saved at least 100,000 baby harp seals from being clubbed to death. So then we realized, well, wow, curiosity, okay? America, no disrespect to our government, but 2008, 9, 10, so forth, we went through a recession. We have 150,000 families in Appalachia that aren't eating, they're on food stamps, they don't have jobs. Well, out of curiosity, what if we do something to change it? Well, that was out of curiosity. How can we do that as we the people? We started Grow Appalachia, where we took hundreds of people at a time, bought everything they needed to garden for them, irrigation, seeds, everything you could ever imagine, the tools, and got Brea College to work with us. And the goal was this: we're going to have you take care of yourself through philanthropy. The end result is you become part of the United States of America, you give back, and you make money. Phase 1 was you grow your own vegetables, you feed yourself, those around you, and you can them for the winter. Phase 2 was add on something else. Grow additional vegetables, with those, sell them at farmers markets or locally grown grocery stores as organically grown produce. You now have an income. Then bring bees in there for honey, and then you'll bring chickens in. All of a sudden, through the curiosity and we the people getting involved, we change the lives of millions. Now, why do I do this? In our Paul Mitchell schools, we have 120 of them. Part of your school, part of your education as a top hairdresser is culture, how to give back. It's mandatory. We underwrite all of it, and we do things to help human beings out. And here's why. One little sentence. When you do something for somebody else and ask absolutely nothing in return, you get the greatest high you'll ever have in your life. And I know what a high is. I'm a child of the 60s. You get the greatest high in the world. Nothing, you can't smoke anything that compares to that. And then all of a sudden you realize we're on this planet Earth. Why not do something while we're alive in here to pay a little bit of rent and change the world? Well, by doing that for 2 people, 3 people, let alone hundreds or millions or thousands of them, okay, you feel better than you could ever imagine. You know you came here doing God's work, and you're doing something great, and you deserve what you have. By gosh, you deserve it because you're giving back. Success unshared is failure.
Success unshared. I love that. And we're going to open this up to questions, but I just wanted to say, you said that you give without expecting anything back.
Not
no
even a thank you.
agenda. All of your curiosity conversations, you go in and you say, I have no agenda. I don't ask for a thing. I thought that was fascinating.
Yes, yeah, but even though we do very, very different businesses, we sort of access on similar ideas, and that I do believe 2 things. One is I've had the best results when I've definitely believed that what I'm asking for in a star or trying to get a star, whatever that thing is a win-win for both person. If I think I'm winning and they're not winning, I don't think it brings to a good result. I don't even want, definitely it's not the good karma move. It doesn't work, I don't think. I don't even know how to do it, actually. And then the other thing was whatever you were saying.
I was saying that because John Paul said that he doesn't expect anything back. And what's really one of the things that Brian says, if you're going to have a curiosity conversation, ask for 20 minutes, be on time, don't go over, and don't ask for anything.
Yeah, don't have any asks at all. Usually what I do in these curiosity conversations is I try to do enough research that I can actually give the person that I'm meeting some sort of gift of knowledge that I think they might want. Maybe like a song they never heard, or, just give them something that they are going to want to know that's cool. Like even, I can't say the name of the person, the most powerful corporate executive in the world, doesn't dress well. I wore these camo socks. He wanted them, and I knew he'd want them, and I brought him a box of socks. Because I knew the guy would want these camo socks.
But underneath of that, there's a curiosity about the person, an interest in the person, a desire to want to know why they don't dress well and how to help them. So I think we're going to take a couple of questions for both of these men who's I think have talked so much about curiosity and creativity as the basis for their business, for the basis for their success. Which I think is so amazing. So are there any questions? Go right ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Both of you seem to have so much of where you started within you today. A lot of people who reach your success, the levels up, don't have that. How do you think you have kept not just your generosity and your giving, but your wonderment of the world that you had since little boys?
I think I can speak a little bit for Brian, but definitely for myself. When sometimes in life you have nothing and you're down and out. Now, it's just an example where you're so hitting the blues that you see an ant crawl over you. You're really down, right? Well, when you get that down in life, you can only go one way, and that is up. It's the only way you could go. So it's really the attitude. You come from nothing, you get these little things. We're so grateful. God, when I remember one year I had more than 3 shirts in my wardrobe. I felt so cool because I was used to 2 shirts or 3 maximum. You feel wonderful. So even today, with all the goodness I have, and same thing, we'd love to give back. We're so grateful for what we have. The word is grateful. And you're so grateful. Now, what can I do? This was so grateful. I got all this stuff here, and what can I do now to share it with other people and feel wonderful? And that creates a better world for everybody. If everyone thought that way, they could change the entire world. And I think we're seeing more and more of that. The frequency of the planet is rising. Brian?
Well, I think Paul covered it.
He's so smart. That's why he's one of the greatest filmmakers in the world.
I'm interested. Somebody, go ahead. I think to be also what you're saying, the frequency of the planet, people wanting to give back. I think that's interesting. Go ahead.
Brian, will you tell us the story of when you were disappointed and time in your life? Maybe it has to do with Apollo 15.
Okay. So This will take a minute. Okay, quick story. So, movies as they go up, some work, some don't work, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of life cycles in a movie. And so I decide that I'm going to produce Apollo 13. I don't know anything about aviation or space travel or anything, but I read this little 12-page treatment outline that Jim Lovell had written, and I liked the idea of survival and about man that's completely equipped and qualified, but they're not qualified for one particular event that's going to happen. So they have to reach inside of themselves to find resources just to survive. So I thought, well, that's really interesting. I love survival stories. I don't relate to all the other stuff, but I like this part of it. So in any event, I decide that I'm going to buy this, and plus the book, try to make this movie Apollo 13. So then I get Ron Howard to do it, then Tom Hanks. Then we all go, wow, this is cool that we're doing this. But like, everyone knows the end of this is no one's going to care. They all know they made it back. But then we sort of found a way to create a narrative architecture that made it kind of compelling, by having these 3 different universes and cutting back and forth from the capsule to mission control, et cetera. And it made it somehow like really involving. So we think, wow, this maybe is going to be okay. What do we all bet it's going to do? We all kind of go, well, like maybe it'll do $40 million worldwide. So then the movie comes out, does like $500 million. And so we think, wow, that's amazing, we won. But then we're told by our, by Universal International, like, well, you don't really know for sure until it through all the markets, like how it's going to do in other countries in the world. So then we felt good, now we're depressed again. So then, now we're depressed, then it does well in the rest of the world, then we're happy again. Then something happens that makes us depressed again, and then the Oscars happen. We don't even think about the Oscars because it's far away. All of a sudden, then we get nominated, 9 Oscar nominations, and we think, wow, we're happy again. And then Ron Howard didn't get one of the nominations, so he's unhappy, but I'm happy because I produced it. So now the Oscars are happening, and we're, weeks out and everything, and every poll, every prognostication, all the data says Apollo 13 is 100% going to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Now, I've already had a little taste because I got nominated for a writer for writing Splash. I'm thinking, I'm back. This is it. I've got people calling me, Mike Milken, you're winning. When you win, say my prostate cancer thing. I mean, I had everything happening. Las Vegas, everything is saying you're winning. So now I've got my speech in my pocket. I'm sitting in like the 6th row at the Oscars, right on the aisle, and things go, so now we're at the final envelope, and Sidney Poitier, very elegant, very deliberate, he's got the envelope in his hand, and he opens it up very slowly, and I projector, I think I see a bee coming off his lip. So I get out of my chair, because I think he's saying Brian Grazer, and I've got my hand in my pockets on film to say my speech. I'm walking towards Sidney Poitier, and he goes, and the winner, he goes, Braveheart. I'm going, oh my God, like, this is like horrible. So I turn around, I'm so embarrassed, and I go back to my seat. And one of my friends, chairman of one of the big studios, goes, loser. And I remember it. It's embedded in my memory that I get down to my seat. I sit in my seat with the loser and the thing. And this is horrible. It's embarrassing. And then, Mel Gibson's walking up to get the thing. And then I feel Jim Lovell, the actual astronaut that the movie is about, reaches over, Tom Hanks and Ron Howard, way over, grabs my wrist and goes, I never made it to the moon either.
That's genius.
If you ever lose your daytime job, you're a perfect comedian, man. That's beautiful.
JP, do you feel you've made it to the moon?
Excuse me?
Do you feel you've made it to the moon?
Yeah, I've made it to the moon, but I want to kind of go out for the whole universe right now. You know, the moon is within reach. We've got Mars, we've got other places. I think what happens in life, I like to say this, like a peach that grows. As long as it's growing, it's beautiful. The minute it gets ripe, it starts rotting. So when we become complacent in life and don't go along with what we feel we want to do or grow if we want to, we go in a different direction. So I think definitely I've been so blessed in my life. So on the way to the moon, I want to bring a whole bunch of people with me, which I have. And let's go to Mars. Let's go throughout the universe. It's endless. And that's why I don't mind doing a lot of things continuously. I just feel it. I feel it within. That frequency says, do it. Take a look at it if it's cool. If it benefits the planet and the people, and it's a great thing, why not?
Amen. Okay, was there another go ahead, in the back. So what's the question? The question is that...
I can throw,
Yeah.
I'll throw some answer at you because there was a lot of questions in there. But okay, so basically, I think we're in a very hopeful period. And I look at it more positively. Sure, there's movies that are copies of other movies and stuff like that, but people are interested in the hows and whys things happen. And I think now that John Paul was saying he saw this new series that I just did, it's called Genius. The first 10 hours is on Albert Einstein, and people really. Okay, And people like it, and I'm not the only one that's making movies and television shows like this. And it's really now sort of, we're really living in the epicenter of the age of enlightenment as far as how movies and television content is being, is living, that's in our space right now. And really, smart TV has kind of found a way to replace reality TV. So I'm hopeful.
You're right.
Go ahead, Sean. I think we have time, Michelle, for like one or two more. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Sean.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Mr. Grazer, Mr. DeJoria. What's one thing that each one of you guys could do, like an idea that maybe all of us could do, which is something easy and daily to help move humanity forward? Because sometimes it's hard when you feel like all this stuff, and Maria, we've got to be in our change within, but Maria, out there. What's one thing one idea from each one of you guys that
We live in a world of illusion. Sometimes you see things that are real, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But to change things, if whatever you do it in the best interest of the people and the planet, you can't go wrong.
I would do it in a very small, well, yeah, that's awesome. No, it is. I have a really tiny thing. So, no, mine would be sort of within the world of curiosity, and that just by applying that and understanding that that's a power that we all have, it's by if you use it one-on-one just to show an interest in one other person. Ask them questions. Look them in the eyes. When you look people in the eyes, it validates them. It makes them feel they're a human being. It's an equalizing thing to do to somebody. And so the worst that comes out of being curious and exercising that just on a one-on-one, it's polite. It's generous.
What I think in when you were talking about, you both talked about curiosity and creativity, but if you're saying take that to a dinner table, a conversation series, it also brings you out of your comfort zone. You go out, and that's one of the things we hear a lot of today, you know, that people missed this election because they were all in silos. And you've talked a little bit about kind of how do you get out of a silo so you're meeting people that are outside your comfort zone, that are telling you things you don't know. Maybe you meet them all the time in your business, but how could everybody here meet somebody where they would come away and go like, wow, I didn't know that.
be prepared to ask them any question you want, and you'd be amazed at what comes out of them. Just be prepared to be able to do that.
But a lot of people here feel like they can't call you up and say, I want to have a curiosity conversation, or they're not going to call me up and say, I want to have a curiosity. Like I told him, no, I'll have one with you. So, I mean, and so how do people begin to pick up the phone and call somebody to, even if they're so prepared, they can't get in the door?
I guess it's probably the same way Brian and I first started out. We didn't know any better, so we had to call somebody and ask. And if someone said no, we'd call someone else. They said no, someone else. Like knocking on that 50 doors, be just as enthusiastic on door number 51 as the first one. Just don't give up. And remember this, you got to take action. You have the best ideas, best creativity you could ever imagine in your life. You've really got it going for you, but unless you take action, it's worthless. Like having the technology. Unless you could apply it, it's of no good.
That's good. You can have so many ideas, but if you don't execute on them. And you've just written another book, which is all about looking people in the eyes.
Yeah, I just read another book that's not out yet, but it's called Eye Contact. I might have mentioned it to you, JP, but it's called Eye Contact, and it's on the use and absence of eye contact. So it's stories that access on threshold moments where eye contact, real connectivity has made a difference, and when there's no eye contact at all. So it's all the sort of variations of how eye contact affects you in your life.
I want to ask one final question. Both of you have your wives here this evening. And before we came out, we were talking about Albert Einstein and the genius and his wife. And I would like both of you to address how your partners have affected you, affected your success, and what you know now about that you wish you'd known when you were starting out.
Sure. Eloise is one of the most incredible human beings on the planet, a wonderful lady, wonderful mom. And because, shall we say, our philosophies are a little bit different in life, even though they kind of align, she has a different viewpoint than I do on many things. And many of those things she's correct, or it opens up my curiosity to find out more about her point of view and go after it. In many cases, she's right on. She's a good woman.
What about
Well, in so many ways, she's hugely helpful to me as a partner. You know, probably like Paul, that, you know, or JP, that it's having someone that loves who you are, validates for who you are, not trying to change you, fix you, monitor you, wish you were something else, but is able to see the truth of that. And genuinely, there's that thing that kind of symbiosis that kind of comes together and produces a better result in terms of being happy, in terms of giving, and all that kind of stuff. For me, I had this sort of extra little thing of, so I grew up, I went to catechism, I did that thing, I had Jewish mom, grandmother, Catholic dad, went to catechism, then ran away from the whole idea of Catholicism because then there were nuns that scared you. She introduced me to a parish that, in fact, you're part, you go to Santa Monica Parish, Monsignor Torgerson, and I really very reluctantly wanted to re-enter this idea of going to a church. And so, but I met this one man, Monsignor Torgerson, who humanized this whole, humanized it, and I found it really different than I would have imagined it to be, and it bridged me back into a relationship with God that's really valuable.
Beautiful, Veronica. I want to thank Ford for sponsoring these conversations. I want to thank all of you for coming. The proceeds of these conversations benefit the Women's Alzheimer's Movement, where our curiosity is that why are so many people in our country developing Alzheimer's? 2/3 of all the cases, every 66 seconds, 2/3 of the brains affected are all women. And no one knows why that is. And so I'm very curious about why that is, and so we're trying to fund research into women's brains and try to get the answer. So you're all a part of helping us do that. And I want to thank both of these men for their curiosity, their creativity, for challenging the status quo, and with everything they're doing is about moving humanity forward. And so I want to thank you both for doing that and for sharing your wisdom with all of us here this evening. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria.